And so the question is then, how do we do that? What does it mean to remain? What does it mean to dwell and to make our home in Jesus, in our relationship with him? And so I just want to look at just three. This is not meant to be exhaustive. There's so much in this passage in John 15 that there's way more than we could ever cover in one sermon from this statement. But just three ideas here. To remain or abide or make your home in Jesus, there's three things that we have to accept. We have to come to this place in our lives where we just accept these three things if we're going to remain in the person of Jesus. The first one is this. We have to come to this place where we accept that remaining is my only option for a full life. Remaining is my only option for a full life. Now, we understand, don't we, that there are different levels of being alive, right? Plants are alive, aren't they? Like that those trees out there, they look dead, but some point here in the next month, I hope, stuff is going to start to happen. Things are going to start to bloom, and we're going to realize like, oh, those plants were alive. They're still alive, right? So plants are alive, but we would say human beings are alive at a different level. Humans have maybe like a higher level of life than plants, right? You know how I know we believe that? Because if a human being suffers a traumatic brain injury, then they are reduced basically they're still alive, but they're reduced to the level of a plant life. And so what we literally call them, we say, well, that person, they are a vegetable, right? They're in a vegetative state. What we're recognizing is they're alive, but they're basically functioning kind of at the life of a plant level. They're not functioning at the optimum level that a human being is supposed to live at. So there are different levels for life. There's plants, there's animals, there's humans. What Jesus is saying here in this passage is there's actually something even higher than human life, than the human experience. He's saying there's abiding life in me. Remaining in me is the only way to have a full life. In fact, a few chapters before this in John 10, Jesus says, I have come that you might have life and life to the full. You can be alive, but not fully alive. I've come that you can experience full life. And the only way we experience the fullest life is in remaining, abiding in the person of Jesus. We have to come to this place where we accept that remaining is my only option if I want to have the fullest kind of life you can possibly have. That independent life, making a strong sense of myself, that's a lesser life than living in life in Christ. Secondly, we have to accept that remaining is my only option for advancing the kingdom. Remaining is my only option for advancing the kingdom. We just read it there in verse 4, didn't we? Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Not, apart from me, you can get some stuff done. Like, if you just like work really hard, if you just try to be a really good person and do some good things, like you'll get some stuff done. It'll be okay. He doesn't even say that. He literally says, if apart from me, you are just spinning your wheels in the mud. You're going nowhere. You can do nothing. There's nothing good that you can do on your own power, on your own strength. So the invitation from Jesus is literally that you have to remain in me. You have to make your home in me. And fix your gaze on me, and then I'm the one who will produce the fruit in your life. Your job isn't to produce the fruit. Your job isn't to advance the kingdom. Your job is to remain, to dwell, to abide in me, and I'll be the one who does the fruit through you, through your life. Well, what this means, if you really understand it, is if I'm not remaining in Jesus, if I'm not resting in the person of Jesus, then I am working even when I'm trying to rest. Even my rest isn't real rest. It isn't full rest. If I'm not remaining in Jesus, if I'm not resting in him, then even when I try to work, or even when I try to rest, I'm not resting. I'm actually working. And the inverse of that is true as well. If I am remaining in Jesus, if I am resting in him, then I am resting even when I'm working. Yes, it's true that we need to rest from our work, but it's also true that there is a work that only comes from our rest. Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Unless I'm working out of my rest, my ultimate abiding relationship in Jesus, there's nothing good coming out of my life. But this is what we have to accept if we want to really remain in Jesus, that these things are true. And then, thirdly, Jesus says to remain, we must accept that remaining requires allowing God to cut off anything in me that bears no fruit. There it is. You knew we were going to get to it eventually, didn't you? That's the part of this passage that nobody likes. The word is prune. I don't know if you caught it there. And it says that God is the gardener. And so what God does is he comes along when we're remaining in Jesus. What he does is the gardener comes along and he cuts off, he prunes anything in us that is not fruitful so that we can become more fruitful. A pruning is when you cut like something off of a plant, a living thing, that's basically draining the life of the plant and keeping it from being fruitful and keeping it from being productive. And so God does that in our lives. I mean, I would just ask you, is it possible that right now you're in a season of pruning? Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's some plans you had for where you thought life was going, and suddenly, boom, it all got cut off. And you're frustrated with God. Maybe it was a relationship that got pruned out of your life. Are you in a season right now where you're actually, sometimes we don't realize we're actually fighting against a pruning that God is trying to do in our lives. We're wrestling with him, we're fighting with him, trying to keep him from cutting something off in our life. And what he's doing it for, he's not doing it to hurt us. He's doing it to help us. He's doing it to help us grow. Do you know the difference? Imagine there's a man in a park. The man is walking through the park, and suddenly he's confronted by a man with a mask. The man has a knife. The man cuts him and then takes all of his money. So they rush the man to the hospital, and there in the hospital, they determine that he needs surgery in order to fix the damage that's been done. And so there in the operating room, he is confronted by a man with a mask. The man has a knife. The man cuts him, and then the man takes all of his money. You get it, right? One of those is there to hurt him. The other one is there to help him. Do you know the difference between when God is working in your life, doing a pruning to actually help you? This is what I'm trying to say. God is never more intimate. He is never more close to you. He is never more caring, more loving in your life, more present and close to you than when he's got the knife in his hand. It's his mercy and his grace. And oftentimes we find ourselves fighting against the very thing that he wants to do in our lives. Instead of saying, Lord, cut it off. Whatever you got to do. Whatever you got to take away from me so that my heart, everything would be burned away except for my passion and my love for you. Because remaining in you, that's the only way to have a real life. That's the only way to have the fullest life that's possible. Is there anywhere where you just need to say, God, I submit to you. I trust you. I'm going to let you do what you need to do in my life. Is that the move you need to make today? God, take it all. Cut it off. I loved our worship this morning, the way it just centered us back on the person of Jesus. It's all about you. That's what he's inviting. That's what he's asking us to be. I am the true vine, he says. You don't have any life outside of remaining in me. And I'm the one who can produce the fruit. The gardener is going to come along and he's going to cut things out of your life, but it's for your good to make you more fruitful. Yield to him, submit to him. I want to kind of end with focusing in on one verse. Again, this passage has just become so dear to me, but verse 11 in this passage, for me, has been a place where I've just come back to again and again over the last year. Because it's incredibly profound what Jesus says. And the more I've meditated on it, the more I've just sort of lived with this. This verse to me is just so incredibly powerful because Jesus does something we're about to see here. In verse 11, he actually tells us why he's telling us this. Okay, with the other 7 I am statements, he doesn't necessarily tell us why he's telling us this. With this one, Jesus actually tells us, here's why I'm telling you this. Here's why you need to know this. And what he says is so incredibly profound if we can get it. John 15:11, Jesus says, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. I'm going to read that again slowly because it's just so incredible. Jesus says, I have told you this. I'm the true vine, you're the branch, remain in me. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. Do you understand what Jesus is saying there? Jesus is literally saying, look, life is not going to bring you joy. Stop going around your life expecting life to bring you joy and getting disappointed when life doesn't bring you joy. Life is not going to bring you joy. Jesus says, remain in me, and then I will give you my joy, and then you can take my joy into whatever you face in this life. That's good news. That's real hope. The month of March is a big month for us and for me personally, not just because my son is moving out of the house, but also because March is scan time again. So every 6 months, I go in for these full body CT scans to determine whether or not the cancer is still in remission. And so every time we get to this, this point on the calendar, I go through what I can only describe as scanxiety. It's this weird anxiety. I wish I was more spiritual in this. I wish it didn't affect me. But I have to find myself coming back and remaining in my relationship with Jesus in a fresh way every 6 months. I was reflecting this past week on something that happened in 2021 when I went through chemotherapy in 2021. And I was just remembering, I remember this one day I went in for my treatment. And the way it works is you sit in this chair for hours while you get this treatment, and there's a nurse that's assigned to you. And it's one nurse. It's the same person that's assigned to you, for the whole day. And so this nurse was assigned to me, and because you're there for the whole day, as you sit there in this chair and they pour toxic waste into your veins, you get to talking to this person who's checking on you, making sure you're okay, and so you get to kind of know their life. And so this particular nurse, she was having a really rough time in life. Like there's some stuff happening with her kids. She was just carrying some really heavy burdens, and you could tell. And then to make matters worse, that particular day, the chemo drugs got delivered late. So if you don't know, they have to actually mix the chemo drugs the morning of and send it over to the cancer center. And so whatever happened, they didn't get there, and so that put everything behind. Everything's off schedule. And so she's already stressed out, my nurse, and now she's getting more and more angry, more and more frustrated, more and more impatient. She's just upset, angry. And so what I started doing is every time she'd come over to me, I just started joking around with her. I just started trying to joke with her because what am I going to do? I'm just sitting here for all day, whether I like it or not, in this chair, right? And so I just kept joking with her. And finally, I guess I was kind of annoying her at some point because finally she turns to me and she just goes, "What are you so happy about?" And my response, I said to her, "What are you so unhappy about? You don't even have cancer." And thankfully she laughed. And that sort of opened this door and this window, and I got to share with her why I'm happy, not why, and even more importantly, why I'm joyful, why I have joy. Where does that come from? I got to talk about my relationship with Jesus. You see it? It's possible to be sick and to be actually living a fuller life, a better life, a higher level of life than those who are well. Inversely, it's possible to be well and living a worse life, a lesser life than those who are sick. You want to know the secret? Come here, I'll tell you the secret. Come in here if you're watching online. The secret is it all matters where you are building your home, where you're dwelling, where you're abiding. Is it the person of Jesus or is it your own independence? Stop expecting life to bring you joy. Life is not going to bring you joy. It's not, doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible. Remain in Jesus. He will give you his joy, and then you can bring his joy into whatever you face in this life, and that is real life. That is real hope. That will not disappoint you. Remain in him.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope it made an impact on your life somehow. And if it did, don't forget to like or subscribe or share it on social media with your friends as well. We always love seeing you, and remember that you can join us live every single Sunday. So hope to see you there.